I knew I had an issue. I knew I wanted to resolve that issue. But until I finally started seeing and finally started opening my mind to be able to have an issue and boom, go after it. Have an issue, boom. Realize there's an issue. Once I realize there's an issue, then I can start planning on things to resolve that problem. Next thing is executing. I am taking you on a journey of revival in my life and the life of others in hope that your life will be revived in the process. All right, and so we're back with another podcast episode, and today I will be talking to you about how I overcome adversity. And so the reason why this was pressing hard on my life is because right now we're in a time of a lot of adversities that multiple different people have to face, whether that's financial, whether that's medical, whether that's just being worried and scared and trying to overcome different factors that come into place, whether that's death around you, whether that's not being able to pay the bills, whether that's not being able to go to work and being trapped or feeling trapped. So I really just want to jump into it and talk about my life a little bit more. But real quick, we're going to take a moment to thank our sponsors. Do you want to create a digital empire but don't know how? Well, here's your chance to start a new skill set that will help you do just that. Ace Local Leads is providing a free blueprint guide on how to start a real digital business you 100% control, land real clients, and earn real recurring revenue. The free guide teaches you how to get paid to solve the biggest problem most small businesses have. Download your free guide now and discover 1. A reliable step-by-step method to find and service high-paying clients that will pay $2,500 to $5,000 every month to get the leads their businesses need from you. 2, the secret strategy we use that most agencies don't even consider, and it ends up being their number one fatal flaw. And 3, which is bonus content. No experience, no problem. We'll send you video tips and a real person will answer your questions. Visit CoachTobias.com. That is CoachTobias.com now to get started. Have you wanted to make a podcast but didn't know how to get started? That was me until I found Anchor. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more platforms. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. That is ANCHOR.FM to get started now. All right, and so I'm going to start this podcast off with a little bit of background information on myself and I guess how I grew up, because when I was born, my parents, both of them were young. I was born when my mom was 20. My dad was, I want to say 21, 22. No, he was 22. And so that created a lot of struggles just to begin with, a lot of adversities for my parents, a lot of adversity for myself and for my brother, because he had to, kind of look out for me during times that were really challenging for my parents. So just to give you a little bit of background information on myself, my parents got married. My mom was 16. My dad was 18. My dad was in the Navy at the time. And so they moved to Philadelphia where it was legal to get married at that age. And so they got married very, very young. And then within 2 years, they had my brother. So my mom was 18 at the time. My dad was 19 or 20, right around that time. And so with that being said, they were very, very young. They did the best that they could with the, all the stuff that they had. And I think they did an amazing job. They're still together. They always provided food on the table. They always put a roof over my head. And, they taught us common courtesies and respect that most people, aren't doing nowadays. And so I appreciate them. But growing up, like my dad, was gone for quite some time. My mom would work, I want to say she would work the night shift. No, she would work the morning time. They would swap in and out. So sometimes my mom would work the night shift, and then my dad would be working the daytime shift and being able to work, consistently that way. But we had some issues from the get-go. My parents had some problems with drugs and alcohol, and so my dad was always in and out of the house and running the streets, and drugs were a pretty big deal, and so he would just vanish for like weeks at a time because of cocaine and different things like that. And so that was very, very hard because when he would come back, my parents were arguing, they were yelling, and there was a lot of bickering going on. And so from a young age, I had to deal with a lot more problems that were out of my control. But to be honest, I think it allowed me to not look at other things as such a big deal. Where other kids may think that not getting their favorite toy at the store was a big deal. Mine was like, I don't know when my dad's coming home, and so that is hard to deal with. And some people take it different ways. For myself, I did not take it in like a very horrible way. To be honest, I have been very good at trying to find the positive in things rather than just dwelling on the negative and looking at things that, I can't control. I've always been a person who's like wanted to fix things or would try to find solutions to the issues I had, like the last podcast episode that we talked about that. And so I've just been very, very good at that. And so as problems would come up, I would, not when I was young, I wouldn't attack them head on, but I would try to find some type of solution to it. And so that helped in staying positive and looking at like things in an optimistic way and not just, I understand after like you go through something so many times, it's harder to deal with it. You're not just going to, like, if you've been lied to, or if someone has stolen from you, or if something has happened that is bad, you're not wanting to trust them right away. But I was always pretty quick to forgive, and I was pretty quick to be positive about the situation that I was at. So with that being said, that was happening. We would have to go to a babysitter's house. And she was amazing. Big shout out to her and allowing us to stay there. That family was actually the first family that had my brother and I go to church, and we would really go there a lot. And I honestly believe that they helped change the course of my parents' life because they were like a stable foundation for them, and they were just super gracious for letting us go there during times that they knew were difficult. My mom had to sleep during the day, and my dad was not there to watch us, and so it was just very, very challenging times. And so just growing up, going through that was difficult. But when we'd go to school and then we'd do other things, like it was almost like no one could tell that things were going on at the house, and I never really openly talked about it. But fast forwarding a little bit, going into high school is really a big, I would say it's a big like point where I would say I started doing things different. Before, I would be more shy, I'd be more timid, and I would not speak my mind at all. I would just go with the flow and not deal with the issues. I'd push them down, and I would tuck them away, and then eventually I would freak out, like no joke, just like lose it, like temper tantrum, freak out, and lose my cool. And so that created a lot of depression, a lot of anxiety, a lot of stress, and it was hard to deal with it at a pretty like young age. I'd say like 13, 14 years old. I would say I was pretty depressed, which is kind of hard to believe, but I really do. Remembering back to that point in my life, yes, I can 100% say I was. But moving on from there, like I realized that not dealing with the problems was not the best way to go about it. And that not only was it hurting myself, it was hurting those around me because I would lash out, and the problem was still there. It was just deep, tucked away deep down. And it was just something that I needed to deal with rather than to just hold in and not deal with it ever. And so when that started happening, I started realizing that I just need to talk about it. And my mom, I don't know if you guys know my mom's personality, but if you do, you do know that she's very blunt and she's pretty straightforward about things. And I would say she doesn't like walk on eggshells to be super polite to other people, because she would rather be honest than to be someone who is not telling the truth. She's very truthful, or at least in her own eyes. And that's why we get into it sometimes, because I personally have different views and she has different views, and we're both very strong willed people, and we're both kind of big on our own personal opinions. And so we kind of butt heads and clash. I know that was a big thing that my dad is like, really? Like every time we get together, and we're together for longer than I would say 10 days, we're probably annoying my dad and my wife. Let's be honest. But with that being said, like I started resolving issues. And what that means, or what that looks like, was that back in my high school days, if I would have problems, it doesn't matter who it was with. It could be a parent, it could be a teacher, it could be a student, it could be whoever, right? Like I was like, no one just is respected. Everyone has to earn their respect. And so that was kind of a skewed view. I look at that completely different now because, people have gone through more things than me, and, they're more qualified in at least one area or another, than I am. And it's just not like, you treat people poorly, you're probably going to get treated poorly back. So I've changed that a little bit, but back then, like I'd come up, I'd be like, I just tell people how it was. I just come up and like, hey, this is what's going on. Like teachers would be like, sit down, or like I just being super disrespectful. And so I'd be like, hey, like I understand I need to sit down, but you can say that in a better way. Like you don't have to disrespect me. Like you don't have to be rude and mean to me. Like it goes both ways. And so I was just very big on trying to resolve issues, or at least sharing my personal opinion at that time. So fast forwarding on more, when I started working at an armored car company, I would get, different issues with certain people, because we would be working together and there was no communication from the other end. And I'd be like, hey, like, just let me know what's going on so I can better assist. Like we're all going to have problems. If we just talk about what's going on, then maybe we can resolve that issue. And so, some people like that, some people don't. And so I clashed with other people, but internally, like I knew that if I did not outwardly express that there are problems. Like, so many people are fake nowadays, and they will just say whatever pleases someone else. They will just do whatever pleases someone else, and they don't genuinely enjoy doing it. They just do it because they want to make someone else happy. And for me, like, I did that quite a bit, and I realized that my personal happiness was not going to be good if I just tucked away problems. And eventually those problems would come up, and the problems would be more challenging because now it's not one problem, it's another problem compiled on top of each other. And then now you have a whole wardrobe of problems. And who wants to deal with a whole wardrobe of problems? It's like when you don't do dishes for a whole week. When you look at the sink and you're like, man, this sucks. Now I got to come in here and I got to spend like hours doing dishes. Where if you just do the dishes every night, or you do it after every meal, it's not as difficult. It's not like, you're dreading doing it. It's like cleaning, the same thing. If you don't do laundry for like a month like once every 2 weeks, you're going to have mounds and mounds and mounds of laundry. And it's going to be challenging. It's going to be really challenging to do. You're going to find yourself like, do I really want to do this? Like, am I ever going to get this all done? And so in the same sense, when we have issues with one another, if we have problems that come up, I feel like a good thing, on at least what I've learned from different struggles that I've had to deal with throughout my life, is that if I deal with it quick and I at least address that there is an issue, then I can resolve the issue even faster. And I can move on with life, like if I am not able to realize that, one, there is a problem, then two, I'm never going to be able to resolve that problem. And three, usually I'm going to be lying to myself that everything's good when it's really not good. And so those things are just, at least what I've seen, are better if you deal with them rather than letting them sit and pile up and compound like laundry and dishes. And so that was something that I figured out, and I think it actually is really, really beneficial. And fast forwarding on more, I joined the Marine Corps, and boot camps like 3 months long. I learned all these amazing skills, all these amazing tactics to not push those like things down and those feelings away. And I get to boot camp, and what's the number one thing you ain't doing? You're not expressing nothing. You're doing what you're told. You're shutting the heck up, and you're not speaking unless you're spoken to. And so whether I liked it or not, I had to do it. And so it kind of became a norm after those 3 months. I came out of boot camp not knowing like that, hey, I can just interact now. I'm like still a person, but I'm not saying they brainwash you, but they kind of desensitize you to a lot of things. And so since they did that, I got used to doing that now. Now it's like a new thing that I'm used to. And after boot camp, I went to Marine combat training. During that time, we did lose one of the guys that was in my platoon. He died a couple of feet away from me. He was in the Porter John, and he decided to take his own life. We didn't know that he did until opened the door, and he was there. The person that was in charge, the sergeant at the time, when I was in training, he pulled out, I'm a sergeant now, just so you know, but he pulled out the body. He laid him down, took off his shirt, threw it over his head, and he was like, hey, Johnson, go over there and call the Red Dog. And so I did all that. And as bad as that experience was, and just seeing someone dead laying there on the floor, blood everywhere, brain like not there. Yeah, it was very traumatic. And so I learned that tucking it down deep is what I'm supposed to be doing for the past 3 months. So what do? They're like, hey, you can go talk to the chaplain. I'm like, I ain't talking to no one. It's all good. He's dumb, like he's stupid. Like, why would he do that, right? And so I just tucked it down deep. I just kept training. I kept doing things. I kept going. And I never had time to reflect on it. And so this attitude of tucking things down deep and doing that over and over again brought me to a point in my life where those memories and my sleep pattern and all that stuff was being interrupted because I never dealt with this issue. And so I ran into like a huge wall in my life, because if you aren't sleeping well, you're not working well. If you're not working well, you're not exercising well. You're pretty much not doing anything well if you aren't able to mentally be stable. And so that's where I was at. And I got to this point where it was like, man, I need to do something about this. And as much as I would like to say it's no big deal, even if it was a year, 2 years ago, and it really popped up more when, so I had a roommate on base that he wasn't like in the same room. We shared the bathroom. His room was like right next door. I could pretty much walk to his room through the shared bathroom if I wanted to, but he ended up passing away as well. I guess he had like diabetes or something, and he flushed his system. He didn't know he had it, and he was drinking a bunch of water, and he stopped drinking soda, even though he drank a lot of it. And so people came knocking on my door. They're like, hey, can we get to this guy's room through your bathroom? He hasn't been answering his phone calls. So I open it up, and I'm like, looking, like I got places to be, right? And I kind of look in, and I see him. He's like laying there. He's got a pulse, but when they took him to the hospital, he ended up passing as well, which was very, very tragic. It was very sad, and it really, really sucked. But at that point, literally with him dying, with the person who died next to me, all those memories came back up. And then I would say like a year after my brother passed away, he was shot and killed by the cops. And so with all those things just piling on top of each other, me trying to tuck all of them down deep and not deal with them and not resolve them was leading to bigger issues. Sleep, like I said, it was leading to mental health issues. It was leading to me not getting good health exercise in because of multiple different factors, me drinking more and really just trying to escape and not deal with these things. And so I realized something needs to change because this ain't working well. I would have anger outbursts. And then on top of that, I would start traveling. I'd go overseas to Iraq. I'd go to Afghanistan. I'd go to a bunch of other Middle Eastern countries, Kuwait, Jordan, Oman, just a bunch of places, Bahrain, like we're all over the place. And so I was doing that, and now I'm like gone every 2 weeks, 3 weeks, sleep deprived, come back. I'd have to go to work immediately. A day, I'd get a day off or something, which would give me enough time to do laundry to be able to get back to work and be home for about 4 or 5 days, go back on the road. So with all those things going on, I was slowly losing it, and I was slowly having more and more issues. And it's weird because it's like I learned all this early on, but then I learned something new and I created a new habit, and that new habit stuck. And it is so much harder to get out of, something that is routine, right? Don't talk to people unless you're spoken. Don't feel emotions, pretty much hide those, like it's just being weak. Like there's just so many things that were happening, and I'm not bashing the military in any means, but there are some things that are hard to deal with. And so I started talking to a counselor. I started talking and going to like mental health appointments every week, and that, it's helped a lot. I started taking some medicine to help with sleep, and everything's really helped a lot. But from taking just that first step, I realized that I need to start dealing with my problems again. I need to start doing things. I need to start, approaching it in a new way, because I can't keep doing it the way that I'm doing it now, because it's honestly going to cause more harm than it is good. And so I realized that, and I was like, man, I need to do something else. Like, come on. I need to do something else. There's nothing that I'm doing right now that is going to leave a lasting impact that I want, And so since that was happening, it was just very, very, very good. There's a big sigh of relief, and it's honestly been able to help me onto the next point in my life, which was starting a business. I knew I had an issue. I knew I wanted to resolve that issue. But until I finally started seeing and finally started opening my mind to be able to have an issue and boom, go after it. Have an issue, boom. Realize there's an issue. Once I realize there's an issue, then I can start planning on things to resolve that problem. Next thing is executing. Executing to resolve it by all means necessary. I could bring up the issue, but I still need to do something to improve, to self-improve, to grow as a person, whether that's mentally, whether that's physically, whether that's spiritually. Like, I need to grow as a person, and I can't get there unless I fully understand that there is a problem. And so that happened, and now I'm like, okay, well, I want to start a business, but I don't have money. Shoot, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get this done? And it's like, it was frustrating because when you're in this place, you're like, it's like you're on the edge of a cliff. I don't know if you guys have ever jumped or dived into water from a high place. I know a lot of people have. I used to do it at High Rocks in Oregon. And I've jumped into water from 30 feet up or higher, and it's fun, but it's scary too. I've dropped in skateboarding into like, I busted my butt a couple times. It took me such a long time. Like when I was younger, such a long time to do that. But it's hard because you feel that same feeling where you're right there. You're scared. You're scared. You don't want to do it because it is an unknown area. The same way you feel when you're about to jump off of that cliff into water and you have a good amount of time, it feels like, that you're just falling before you hit the water and thoughts are racing through your head. That same exact feeling is what I was feeling when I was, going to start a business. And it's like, okay, I don't want to go into debt because if I go into debt, that's bad. And I just kept making all these excuses, but I was never saying, yes, there is an issue. And so once I finally got into that habit of realizing that there was a problem and understanding that I need to change that problem, or at least address it. If I can say openly that, yes, okay, this is what's going wrong. Even if I'm just saying it to myself, I'm like, okay, I'm not waking up on time. Well, the reason I'm not waking up on time is because I'm not going to bed early enough. And this is like a real issue that I have constantly. I like to stay up and work and get no sleep and just put my pedal to the metal, right? But sometimes it's not always a good thing. And so with me saying that, once you identify that there is an issue, it allows you to be able to take the next steps to improve it. And now that's when you got to go. That's when you got to execute. And so I created that a habit. And from creating that as a habit, um, it got me out of, that that place where I'm literally just maintaining, where I'm just doing things because that's what everyone else does, right? It actually allowed me to, once you jump off that, let's say 20-foot cliff into the water, then you're like, yo, I could totally jump off a 30-foot. It's not so bad. You don't feel as scared. You don't feel as worried because you know that you're going to overcome that challenge, that struggle, that issue. And in the same sense, the more I executed that muscle of, being able to overcome things and having positivity about it and not, looking back and being like, oh, well, since I failed at this, I'm never going to be able to overcome it ever again. Right. I had positive outlooks on that. And I was optimistic, to be honest, about being able to do more the next time I did this thing. And I would learn, I would grow, and I would learn and I would grow. And I would just keep addressing these problems that were in my life. And it ultimately led to starting a business. To be able to start this business, it cost like $10,000 initially. I was paying $99 a month. I had to do a payment plan for the $10,000 that, initially I needed to start. I couldn't get funding from any business credit cards. I couldn't get funding from any credit cards. No one would fund me up that high because I had no history. And it was just very, very challenging. And so as I exercised that muscle, we were able to move into a house. We were able to buy a house. We were able to start a business. We're able to start running ads on Facebook. And I think that slow shift has helped so much, because now if something comes up, like something super wrong, like what, the pandemic is pretty much doing in everyone's life, is causing fear. I'm not looking at the fear aspect. I'm looking at what am I not doing right, or what can I do to fix the current situation that I'm having. And so I think that is the best way to overcome adversity, or at least that's how I found it. And that's how I have seen it. It has helped, like through my brother passing, I looked at his life and I was like, okay, he passed. I did not say goodbye to him in the best way. To be honest, my last text message to him was, if you keep acting crazy, you're going to get shot and killed by the cops. Why did I say that? I don't know, to hopefully help him act better, right? And so I was so worried about trying to fix him that I didn't realize that time is limited and I need to, be present with him at that time. And that would be the last thing that I ever say to him. And so it really has helped me value the importance of life, and knowing that at any moment, like we are all going to return to the dirt as we were born. We were made from the dirt and we return to the dirt. And so that's how I look at it. And we have to stop taking things for granted, because, to be honest, we're never guaranteed to have what we have right now. We're never guaranteed for so-and-so or such thing that we're doing right now to happen tomorrow. So that has, given me a positive outlook on my life, and it's actually curved and it's changed a lot of my life goals, my life plans, because I was like, my brother passed away at 24, right? Right now, I'm a year older than he was when he passed away. Like, that's insane to me. And so I stopped living a life that was safe, and that was like, I was pretty much held back from the fear of doing stuff. But really, my brother showed me that you need to live right now. And so living, you can't be regretting what you're doing. Like, living is not surviving. Living is thriving. Like, for me to be able to do the business stuff that I'm doing now, I'm excited to do it. There's no point or part in my life that is like, oh, I got to do business. No, like I'm not drinking as much. I'm literally don't have time to do other things because I'm super excited about doing business. Why? Because I'm going to go out there. I'm going to change multiple people's lives. I'm going to, hopefully change 100 families' lives this year. That's at least a big goal that I have. And I know it's a huge one. I know it's way out there, but that's what I'm striving for. And so the reason why I'm doing that is because if I can help them get out of just this basic mentality of just waking up, going to work, paying my bills, doing my time for 20, 30 years, and then, and then start finally living my life, then they can start living their life now, right? Then you don't have to come home. You don't have to slam that beer. You don't have to drink that whiskey. You don't have to smoke that weed. You don't have to, do these things just to live, just to survive, like just to get by. You aren't drowning yourself out to all that pain. So once you are able to address those problems, once you are able to understand that there are problems, then you can start making solutions to fixing those problems. And honestly, I think once you do that, then it will allow you to find out what your calling is in life. And if you have a calling in life, then that means you are going to have a greater purpose. Once you find out that greater purpose, I encourage you and I empower you, hopefully, give you like a little baby push to go out there and to do all that you can to go after your calling, because that is so important. That is going to be your happiness. Like, you're not going to wake up and feel like you're going to work every day. You're going to wake up and feel like you are living the life of your dreams. And I think a lot of that comes from overcoming adversity. Depending on how we can overcome those tragic moments, how we can overcome those damaging times, those hectic times where we don't have control, right? Or it feels like it, right? If we are able to find solutions in those times, then we can find solutions in any time there is. It doesn't matter. Someone may pass away. The stock market may crash. You may lose your current contracts, right? It all depends on how you can overcome that adversity so that you can still not be like stressing, worrying, stressed out, have anxiety, depression, like drowning yourself in alcohol just to live, because you don't know what anything's going to be within the next 2 weeks or the next day or the next 3 days, because you don't have the ability to do the things that you once did. Overcoming adversities will allow you to find solutions to any difficulties, any challenges that you have in your life. And I think, honestly, to be completely honest with you, that has been a huge part in my life that has allowed me to go out there and to follow my passions and to follow my dreams. So guys, I hope you enjoyed and took away something from this podcast episode. If you did, definitely drop a like down below. If you think someone else will find value from this podcast episode, share it, because it makes me smile like I am right now. As always, let's go out there. Let's revive our lives together. Let's get it done. And until the next podcast episode, have a good one.